as we got towards the end of 2000, we actually started doing all the cup testing for your dad. So
he hated testing.
Yeah.
You know who was doing it before was Mike Dillon. Not to interrupt
Mike Dillon, yeah.
We would go to Dad. We go to Talladega. No one's there, just their team testing, and Mike's out there driving the car. I'm like, the hell?
Yeah.
I'm like, how many races would this guy have won if he'd actually done all his own testing?
Oh, you're taking your dad.
Do you remember the ass chewing that we got in Phoenix that year?
No.
You don't remember that? So we went to Phoenix at the end of 2000, and we were in that hauler, and he was so mad because we were the fastest in his car at Homestead, and he had to go to the media center and answer all the questions about not wanting to drive his car and how his car is fast and is he going to retire and everything that came with it. And you just happened to be in the hauler with me that day, and he was hopping mad when he came in there. He took myself and Richard, and I believe you got to go up into the lounge and listen to his rant as well.
All his ass rippings run together at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So he was not happy, but we developed the 3 5s and a 2 at Kentucky because Chevrolet had decided that they were going to develop a new suspension package, and it was really revolved around everything was around the 3 car. But that's where they developed the 1/4 shocks. That's where they developed all the coil binding and the soft springs and everything that kind of changed the way that everybody used the springs to make the car work. So we developed all that stuff. We stayed there for 7 days.
If he was in the car testing, none of that shit would ever got tried because he'd just be like, that's not going to work.
So we tested for 7 days, and we took that car, the car that he didn't like, it was car 51. We took car 51, and that was our test car. That was the one that I drove, and we went to Kentucky for 7 days for that particular test before Indy. So we were testing for Indy. We were developing a new package for him to try at Indy. So they took that car from the test. They loaded it into the truck. They took it to Indy. He took his car, and then he went out on the racetrack, and he made his first run on the racetrack and came in. They put him in the other car, and he ran 9/10 of a second faster in the other car. And he got out, and he asked him, he said, well, what's different about this car? And they told him the springs in it. He said, you load that thing in the trailer right now. I am not driving it again. Wouldn't drive it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't, him and Rusty and all those guys, they all had this,
tiny
had to have
sway bars,
little sway bar,
big
1,100-pound spring in the right front. And
thing coming off the corner with the left front way up in there.
Loaded it up. Never drove it. And wouldn't drive that car. He would not drive car 51. And car 51 is the car that we raced at Atlanta and actually won my first cup race.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That was car 51?
That was car 51.
The one with you're putting the...
That's it.
That's crazy.
And it was just the car that I was comfortable in because Atlanta was supposed to be, they had given us 2 cars to take out of the fleet because Atlanta was going to be my first cup race. That was the originally scheduled first cup race in 2001. We had signed America Online as a sponsor, and that was going to be the first of my 7 races that I ran that year.
Wow.
I did not
never heard of that.
Yeah.
You were going to be running in the cup race anyways.
Yeah. So I was supposed to be in the number 30 AOL car.
Oh,
at Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, all that stuff is strange how it all works.
We were texting just a little bit before a couple days ago, and you talking about the first time you met Dad.
Yeah.
What was that experience?
Yeah, so the first time I met him in just kind of we just walked into his office. I didn't know. I was with Hornaday. Yeah, so Hornaday stuff was all out back. And this was before any of the stuff had happened with the Xfinity car. I guess it would have been 98, 99.
Hornaday's
I guess it would have been 98.
Southwest Tour car and all that?
No, it was when Hornaday had the truck and everything out in the chicken farm.
Okay,
chicken coop, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And so everything was out back. And so Hornaday and I had given a whirl at golf, and we sucked at golf. And he's like, you know what we should do? We should go shoot skeet. I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. I don't have a gun. Never had a gun in my life. Well, we're going to go get a gun. We're going to go see Dale. He's got a whole room full of guns. I said, okay. So we get in the truck and drive over to the office and walk upstairs and we walk into his office. His door's open. Walk in, he's got all his crap all over his desk, and he's got his glasses on, looking down, and he looks up. What do you two idiots want? We sit down, and Hornaday's like, well, we want to go shoot skeet. He's like, why would you want to do that? Shouldn't you be working on your race cars? And so he says, well, if you're going to shoot you two are going to go shoot skeet. I don't want you two idiots shooting your feet off. So he called Danny. You remember Danny that used to shoot for Remington?
Yes. Yeah.
So he called Danny. He said, hey, can you come get these two idiots and teach them how to shoot these guns? And he sent Hornaday out back to get the truck. And he said, Kevin, you come with me. We walked downstairs, and the shop hadn't been built very long. He's like, this is what we have over here, and this is what we have over here. And we walk outside, and we go upstairs, and nothing's happening slow. He's talking 1,000,000 miles an hour because he knows everything that he's got, and he wants to show you what he's got and explain it all to you as you're walking by at 400 miles an hour. So we walk out back, and we go up to the where all the guns and knives are.
Deer head shop.
Yeah, and he goes up there, and he's sign this paper, and throws me a shotgun.
Like he made you sign a waiver, a release.
Well, yeah, you had to, you had to sign a release with the number of the gun on it, so they knew who had it.
Wow,
and
he had
so
a lot of guns. That's a lot of guns.
I mean, they had the Remington sponsorship, so I mean,
got
there was. I can't remember the name of the knife company. You remember all those knives that he had in all those cases?
Frost Cutlery.
Oh my God, I've got piles of those things.
Yeah,
and he had cases and cases and cases in that room. But anyway, that's where we got our first gun, and that was really the first time that I had met him face to face in that setting, and then the next time I saw him, it was in Michigan. This was the second time. They had just announced the AC Delco sponsorship in Michigan. Richard's leading me around, and he walks up in the trailer. He says, let's go talk to Dale before he goes out to practice. We walk up in the trailer, and it's the most awkward setting that you could ever imagine, right? Yeah. You're walking up to meet Dale Earnhardt, and I'm nervous walking up there to not meet him, but say hi to him for the second time in my life. We walk up in the lounge. Dude's sitting in his underwear with a pair of Simpson gloves on.
What the hell?
He's sitting in his underwear with a pair of Simpson gloves on. Richard's like, Dale, Kevin. He stands up. How you doing? Breaking in my gloves. Breaking in my he had a pair of Simpson gloves on, sitting in his underwear, breaking his gloves in before he went out and practiced, because you remember how thick those things were at that particular point. And so,
is there an advantage to doing that in your underwear though?
I have no idea. I'm sure he was just in between
whatever
closed the race suit. So it was. So yeah,
that is even more awkward.
Yeah.
That's more awkward. Yeah. So the first two are definitely awkward. I mean, at what point did it become? Did you guys ever develop a normal relationship where there weren't awkward meetings?
Well, not really, because he was never really around, right? So he didn't go to the test and wasn't really in the shop. Yeah. I mean, I saw him. Last time I saw him was at the Christmas party in 2000, and so that was really the only normal setting. Everything else were those awkward interactions at the racetrack. He was either mad or that we'd gone and tested his car, or at the shop or anything like that.
So I've always wanted to ask you about when they put you in the car in 2001. You go out and you win the race, and you're living your dream, right? You're like,
not really.
Well,
yeah.
If you just take the win, and you're in the Cup Series, you won a race. Like, you're living your dream, but you're not.
Yeah.
Because there's all this other stuff going on. And I want to know how that affected you personally, and how do you kind of feel about it today? And absolutely be completely honest, because we've been absolutely honest about all that in our own lives and how that went, but for better or worse. But so it absolutely wasn't the way you wanted it to go, as far as you're going to run those 7 races in the 30 car, but you were asked to do this other thing, right? And it turned out to be the perfect guy to do it. You went out there and you fit right into the organization. You were good. You were successful. You had to kind of shelve your experience, your own personal experience.
Yeah, that path was shelved.
Yeah.
And look, this is probably the only place that I would ever talk about this, because you're probably the only one that can relate to this. And for me, it was strictly my path was, I'd always beaten my own path. I always wanted to do things my own way. I always wanted to be around the people that I wanted to be around, and the people that I wanted to be around were Todd and all the people that were on that Busch car. Mm-hmm. And so, everything happened in 2001, and I get a call on Wednesday night after the accident, and Richard says, "Hey, I need you to come to the office." And I looked over at Delana. I said, "Well, I know what's coming here. What do you think I should do?" She's like, "What do you think you should do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to have to drive the car." And she said, "Is that really what you want to do?" I said, "Not really." I said, "I can't think of anything else that I would want to do less."
Yeah.
And but I have to do it, because if I don't do it, we're going to have a major problem at the company at RCR. So I go to the office. I go to Richard's office, and it's Richard behind his desk, Kevin Hamlin, and Bobby Hutchins. Kevin's got a bottle of Jack Daniels. Bobby's sitting at the conference table, and Richard's sitting behind the desk. Looks like he's not slept in, probably hadn't slept in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
He said, "Kevin, we want you to drive the car. You've done all the testing. You know all the people." He's like, we totally understand if you don't want to drive it. We'll get Rick Mast to drive it. We've already talked to Rick. He can go right out, and we can figure out something else. I said, "I'll do whatever it takes, for RCR and the company until everybody gets back on their feet." And that was really the only conversation that happened. He said, "Well, we're gonna do the exact opposite on all the cars. Everything that's black is going to be white. Everything that's white is going to be black." He's like, "We're going to take the first available number, which is 29, and we'll go race and until we figure this all out." So we go to Rockingham, and we get to the racetrack, and I always tell people, I'm like, I didn't want to be in this position. Right. I knew it was the right position to be in, but there wasn't anything about this position that was fun. Right. There was not anything there that was fun. And, you go to the first press conference, and I always tell people the first press conference that I ever did for my Cup career was the biggest press conference that I'll ever do in my life. Did you go into that tent?
Yeah.
At Rockingham? Mm-hmm. I mean, you've probably done big stuff like that.
No, I remember. That was a weird deal.
That was, it was just.
It was right outside the track,
wasn't it? Right outside the track in turn 4. Yeah. And so they had this huge tent set up, and I mean, as many people as you want to say were in there were probably in there, and it's just like the political big press conference that they have with all the cameras in the back, and it was intimidating. Richard made me miss practice. We didn't practice the Busch car that day so that we could go do the press conference. So so right from the beginning, it was all backwards, right?
It's so weird that I never, when I think about that whole thing, for some reason in my mind, and I think this is probably habit for everybody, is your first race in the cars Atlanta. I don't even think about you and your experience at Rockingham. I remember my experience and being around Steve Park and Michael, and I see the pictures and stuff on the internet every once in a while, but I never have till just now thought about what Rockingham must have been like for you.
Yeah.
That must have been sucky.
Yeah, and I mean, you came by the trailer, and he said, "Just want you to know that my family's, we're glad that you're in the car. We're behind you." And Dale Jarrett was the other guy that came behind by the trailer on that particular day.
No surprise.
And I think that's
the Dale Jarrett thing.
2001 was. The only thing that saved us from all the chaos was the fact that we decided to race both cars. On
30.
Yeah.
Your Xfinity.
My Xfinity car.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, you could still go test, right? So we went to every Cup test. We went to every Xfinity test. We did every Xfinity race. We did every Cup race. So it kept me kind of secluded to my situation in driving, and I got out of a ton of stuff. And I didn't have to see as much of the chaos as I saw in 2002. I was really oblivious to a lot of the things that the magnitude of the situation, and I think when you look at Rockingham, it came at a really weird time, because the next week Delana and I were getting married in Las Vegas.
Oh my goodness!
Wow,
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and then everything happened in Daytona. So your personal life is changing. Your career path took just a complete right turn, into a situation that had, way more eyeballs on it than anything that you could have ever imagined. And now you're under this spotlight. It's not like I didn't like any of those guys that were on the team, but they just weren't my guys, right?
Sure.
We didn't have anything in common. They were all your dad's age. I was 25. They were all late 40s, early 50s. And we didn't have anything in common. So you were going to the racetrack to do what you had to do, and Todd Barrier did a great job of just kind of being that middle guy of trying to be in the middle of everything that went on to try to keep the peace. Of the whole situation, because the way they communicated and the way that they did things was just not like the way that we did things on the Xfinity cars. So we do the press conference at Rockingham. The race goes fine. I think Steve won on that particular day, and just really awkward, at that particular point. And we load everybody up. We go to Las Vegas, which was actually worked out to be really good timing for our team to kind of get our minds off of everything. We get married Wednesday night. We go to the racetrack, and Richard actually flew out there. We got on the wrong helicopter after the race. Richard had a helicopter take us because the race got rained out. We raced on Monday, so we were already a day late to the wedding to go to Las Vegas. We get on the wrong helicopter, go to the wrong airport, come back to the racetrack, get on the right helicopter. So my soon-to-be wife is already freaking out at this particular point, because everything that we've got is just
unraveled.
Is unraveled and different than what it was supposed to be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, we fly to the airport and go to Las Vegas, and we fly home with Richard, and he said we got our first top 10 in Las Vegas. We got married, and everything worked out, and so we fly home on a plane, and Richard's got this $15,000 bottle of wine. That's the year that he's born. We just got our first top 10, and he's finally starting to, come around and start to speak and wrap his arms around it some. And we finally had a good moment, right? So we get on a plane, and he's like, "You win a race, we'll drink this bottle of wine." I'd never drank a bottle of wine in my life. So I'm like, if I'm going to drink a bottle of wine, I'd love to drink your $15,000 bottle of wine. So we go out the next week and we go to Atlanta and win the race, right? And that was supposed to be my first race. It winds up being your first win. And, you go back and I really don't. I go back and watch those videos, and you're probably, somewhat have some of these same things. Like, I don't remember anything about that day.
Yeah.
I remember nothing. I remember Rockingham, but Atlanta, I don't remember much about anything that went on. It was so surreal. Because of, first you won the race, but, when I stopped on the front straightaway and pulled that window net down and did the burnout and turned around to the crowd, and everybody in the crowd's got three fingers holding up, and they are, screaming as loud as any crowd that I'd ever heard. And I'll never forget it, because with like 2 or 3 laps to go, we were winning. And one of the things that I do remember from that day were the people hanging on the backstretch fence. The people had climbed up on the fence, and the place was it was turned upside down.
Yeah.
And, to not remember that just kind of tells you just how weird it all was. Because, you had to go out and do these things because it's right for the company, and, you're having to race and lost your dad. And there's just so many things that the sport didn't really know what to do. It definitely lost its leader, and everybody, it was just weird and awkward.
What was you mentioned 2002 being harder?
Yeah.
How?
Well, just because we'd been so secluded from the reality of the situation, right?
Yes, because 2001, when 2001 ended, for me, that was like the end of all of that.
Yeah.
Chaos, right?
For me too. But the chaos for me was a little bit guarded, because I ran 33 Xfinity races and all the testing. Like, you were probably just running the Cup car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you were dealing with all the things during the week. I didn't deal with anything. I went to the racetrack and I raced, and a lot of those weekends I went from one racetrack to another racetrack in a different state. And, we were so busy that, the only things that changed, there were people in my yard when I came home. So we bought a guard dog. Because of the fact that, there were so many race fans and people around that you just didn't have before. But the rest of it, like it was just like it was with my Xfinity stuff without my guys. I just went to the racetrack, I tested, I came home.
So what was tough about 02?
02, it all had finally come apart. We had to start making decisions, right? At the end of 01 of, with this sponsor and that sponsor and this endorsement and that endorsement, because they were all there. I mean, your dad had. I mean, there were so many things that were there. It was like, well, we were just going to transfer all this stuff in, and I'm like, no, I don't like that one, and I don't like that one. And then the next thing you know, we had a war because, well, it was Dale did this and Dale did that, and this is what Dale did, and I'm like, well, I'm not doing it like Dale. I'm not doing this like Dale, and because it was just not what I had done, right? And so then you start to get defensive about every decision that you make, and then the people stuff started to show up, as far as crew chief and team, and so as we went through 02, the team started to change. We started changing crew chiefs, and then you had all this turmoil off the racetrack because of the decisions that you had to make, because everybody wanted to be like Dale did it, and I was like, I don't want it to be like Dale did it. And then you had to start making those real life decisions. The cars didn't run good. All that momentum and everything that you lived off of in 2001, that adrenaline and everything that went with that. Now you had a whole winter, and you had all the reality of the situation. The car was back to black and silver in a much different way. I sat in the conference room at GM, and the marketing guy at the time was like, well, why should you be driving our car? You really don't fit our mold. So, I instantly had all this stuff that I just put my guard up against, and probably could have handled differently if you look back at it. But it was just nothing about it was the way that any of it had gone to that point. And I just, put your guard up and probably handled it, defensively, and made a lot of enemies within the company from the guys that had been there for a long time. But I wanted my guys to race with, and eventually that's where it led in 2003.
All right, guys, I know a little bit about cars, so believe me when I tell you that Tire Pros, they're the real deal. They've got great people, great service, and they can take care of all your automotive maintenance needs. Plus, they're a sponsor of this show, so they got great taste in podcasts. So check out Tire Pros. Follow them on Facebook and tell them that I sent you.